Scottish Conservative leader Ruth Davidson was in her office in the Scottish Parliament at about 9 am on Tuesday, 18 April, working on a speech for that evening when the call came through. It was Theresa May on the line to tell her, before the cabinet and 2 hours before the public announcement in Downing Street, that she was calling a general election for 8 June. In the recent past, such news would have been greeted by the Scottish Conservative leadership with dismay, facing the prospect of another humiliating defeat. But Davidson, according to a Conservative staffer, practically punched the air. "Bring it on," she said. Polls over the last week suggest the Conservatives are on course to bring the party back from its near-death experience north of the border. It could win a handful of seats. A modest haul, but one would represent a breakthrough in a country since 1997 has been almost a Tory-free zone in terms of Westminster seats. Reflecting what Davidson calls the buzz around the Conservatives, May made a campaign trip to Scotland on Saturday. Even a few Scottish seats could help May in her standoff with the Scottish National Party over a second independence referendum. May, on her first visit to Scotland since calling the election, said, "My message to the people of Scotland is clear. Every vote for me and my team will strengthen my hand in the Brexit negotiations. That will strengthen the union, strengthen the economy, and the UK and Scotland together will flourish, because if Scotland is flourishing, the rest of the United Kingdom is flourishing too. That's really important because, as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, I want to see every part of our country succeed." The Scottish Conservatives have been dogged by memories of Margaret Thatcher, the poll tax, opposition to devolution, and buffoonish figures in pink corduroys, such as the late MP Sir Nicholas Fairbairn, to hardline right-wingers such as Lord Forsyth. Candidates and canvassers faced the prospect of having doors abruptly shut in their faces. What Davidson has done is to make it respectable around the dinner tables of polite society in Edinburgh to admit to being Tory again, a former Labour minister grudgingly acknowledged. The first signs of a revival came last year when Davidson presided over an increase in the number of Conservative seats in the Scottish Parliament to 31 in the 1 to 9 member chamber, replacing Labour as the official opposition. But she admits that a genuine revival needs more than that. One test will be in Thursday's council election, looking for gains across Scotland, especially in areas where, she says, Conservatives had been thin on the ground, such as Glasgow, Lanarkshire and parts of Ayrshire. The next test will be the general election. The Conservatives, after a steady decline since 1955 when they won a majority of Scottish seats, failed to win a single seat in Scotland in 1997, and just one seat in each of the following general elections in 2001, 2005, 2010 and 2015. A YouGov /Times poll last week put the Conservatives on 28%, up 14 points since 2015, with the SNP on 41, Labour 18, the Liberal Democrats 7, the Greens 3 and UKIP 2. One of Scotland's best-known historians, Sir Tom Devine of the University of Edinburgh, said the opinion polls seemed to suggest there was a revival. This is due to a combination of two variables: the implosion of Labour, and undeniably a part of the Scottish population is root and branch opposed to a Scottish referendum. But Devine, who supported independence in the 2015 referendum, cautioned that the election campaign had not even begun yet and the Conservatives could slip back. This Westminster government is more hardline than Cameron's and, given Scotland being slightly left of centre, if there was scrutiny of Conservative policies, I doubt there would be a revival. Devine said the danger for the SNP was, even a minor slippage will be perceived by elements in the media. The nationalist government has peaked. Davidson, a former BBC journalist and Territorial Army signaller, became leader in 2011. She has said that although she is only 38, she is a veteran already, bringing home just how many elections the Scots have faced in that time. She said she had been involved in 8 contests, 9 if her own leadership contest was included. Davidson appears relaxed, with an easy sense of humor, though she has a caustic side too. Education in a comprehensive has left her free of the posh vowels of most of her predecessors in the leadership. Nicola Sturgeon has helped us considerably by making it SNP versus Conservatives, Davidson said. She described Sturgeon as being a good recruiter for the Conservatives. Even if the Conservatives gain a few seats, the SNP is set to remain the dominant party in Scotland, with a majority in the Scottish Parliament, predicted gains in the council elections, including control of Glasgow, and the bulk of Scottish seats at Westminster. SNP membership is around 120,000. The Scottish Conservatives refuse to say how many they have, though the number is far lower than the SPs. The total for the Conservatives in the UK as a whole is 150,000. The Scottish Conservatives were first to put up posters after the general election announcement, and were also first to deliver leaflets through letterboxes. Professor James Mitchell, Company Director of the Academy of Government at the University of Edinburgh, said, "The Tories have the resources to target effectively, as seen in last Holyrood elections. So we should expect a significant boost to parliamentary representation. What they may lack in activists on the ground, they make up for in money." Mitchell added, "They also have a simple message which is repeated constantly, and in the most disciplined manner of any campaign we have seen in Scotland. They have essentially become a single-issue party, opposing another independence referendum." He said this had a number of advantages, one of which would be to broaden their appeal to voters who might otherwise never consider voting Tory, including former Labour voters. Conservative target seats include Berwickshire, Roxburgh and Selkirk, East Renfrewshire, and Perth and North Perthshire. Part of the reason May visited Aberdeenshire is because of a slew of potential victories there. Aberdeen South, Banff and Buchan, West Aberdeenshire and Kincardine, and Moray, which would be a big prize, as it is currently held by the SNP leader in Westminster, Angus Robertson. Kevin Pringle, the former SNP Communications Director who remains close to the party, sees a Conservative recovery as inevitable. It's fully 25 years since the Conservatives won more than one seat in Scotland at a general election, which is hugely imbalanced. That was always going to change at some point, and it looks like happening in this election. In the early 1980s, the Tories were winning 21 seats, nearly 30% of the vote, in Scotland. So it's a long way back. The new imbalance is the near destruction of the Labour Party. It may cost the SNP a few seats, but it suits their independence narrative beyond this election. Scottish politics to be primarily an SNP forward/Tory contest. And that's well on the way to being the new normal, Davidson's opponents say. Where the Conservatives remain vulnerable is through association with May's right-wing agenda. The Conservatives' Scottish leader has floundered when challenged on issues such as the rape clause, a controversial proposal to ask new mothers verification if they wish to claim tax credits more than 2 children, and one of those children was conceived through rape. Davidson's reply is that it is a complex and difficult issue. Mitchell, echoing his fellow academic divine, said, Ruth Davidson's ability when on the offensive may be impressive, but she buckles, becomes tetchy, and is weak when having to defend a position. Her hearty laugh and PR skills will help the Tories pick up seats. But at some point she will start to be scrutinized on policy. He added that there did not seem to be much sign of such scrutiny yet. Voters' views. Nick Banbury, freelance marketing consultant, Edinburgh. My original switch from Labour to the SNP happened around the time of the general election in 2015. I felt that Labour had turned their backs on Scotland, and that they were taking their stronghold there, and their core supporters for granted. I also believed the policies of the SNP were closely aligned to those of Labour on many core issues. Crucially, they also had the chance to actually implement them. Since 2015, my support for the SNP has definitely solidified. I am English and I moved to Scotland in 2013. When I first voted for them, I did so because of their non-independence related policies. Since then, though, I've actually become an advocate of independence for Scotland too. And that's the reason why I became a member of the party a few weeks ago. Until then, I'd never been a full member of any political party. Farooq Chowdhury, taxi driver, East Renfrewshire. I'd been a Labour supporter since 1994. And I took this into the 1997 general election, where I voted for Jim Murphy in this constituency. I supported them in every election until 2015. Around then I went along to a Conservative Party event in Glasgow, and was handed a copy of their manifesto, and found much in it with which I agreed. I was also disappointed when Kezia Dugdale, the leader of the Labour Party in Scotland, said that she would give her MSPs a free vote in another referendum on Scottish independence. This would leave the Conservatives as the only party in Scotland totally committed to the Union. I really value our union with England within the UK, as it's been successful and worked for Scotland. I'm also a pragmatist and think that this may be our last chance to save the Union. The next generation, I think, are a bit more apathetic. Elaine Campbell, administrative consultant, Glasgow. I've been a supporter of the SNP as long as I can remember, although at first it was more driven by the charisma of some of its big personalities than anything else. Jim Sillars was very influential then, and so was his wife, the late and much lamented Margot MacDonald. They had such an influence on me, and helped form my political consciousness around ideas of fairness and equality, and being able to stand on your own 2 feet. Margot inspired a lot of young women like me to get involved in politics. I think people should vote for the party that they can trust completely. And for me, that's the SNP. They've never let me down. I had a lot of personal respect for the leadership and integrity of Johann Lamont, Labour's former leader in Scotland. But her claim that Scottish Labour was merely the branch office of London rang true then, and remains so. James Lenigan, milkman, Lennoxtown. I've always been a Labour supporter because, for me, No other party has come close to delivering a better standard of living Scottish people than them. Other parties who claim they are left of centre are all good at talking the talk, but only Labour have ever improved the lives of working people, especially in health and education. I know their vote has been squeezed in Scotland in recent years. Independence has played into the hands of two parties who are narrowly focused on nationalism of one sort or another. Labour, on the other hand, are standing up for the rights of workers and their families all over the UK, no matter where they live. Nationalism, whether it be the Scottish version or the Tory English version, just gets in the way of the real task, which is reducing inequality across Britain. We'll keep fighting the good fight.